let's bring in Simon Stevens, who's the Director of Casework for Addictions UK. Morning.
Good morning.
On the issue of whether there should be any underage drinking at all, what would you say?
I think that for adults to tell young people that they shouldn't drink is a fairly hopeless task. If I go back to my youth, you weren't supposed to drink, but we did. It's very hard for people in sort of middle teens to understand, well, they do it, that is adults, so why shouldn't we? And as your previous speaker said, it's a rite of passage. So,
does that mean we just have lowering of standards? I mean, the same could be said for underage sex as well, where people say, well, no, you should just be waiting till
we do have underage sex, and that's a reality. Simply saying, no, you shouldn't do it is, never actually works. You might stand a better chance with education, and for example, with alcohol, with proper education, saying that, well, yes, we can show that drinking alcohol sort of in middle adolescence does cause brain structures to change, and that can be damaging.
So would you advocate educating children at school from a certain age about?
I would certainly advocate educating children.
From what age?
I think from probably, my thought would be secondary school, that you start indulging in sciences in terms of biology and things. It fits nicely into biology. The brain is our most important thing that we have. I think it's very important we should learn how to look after our brain and how not to damage it.
Okay, so say by the age of 14, you've got a child in a class who says, I've been educated and now I'm making the informed decision to get drunk.
Well, there you have a problem. You have to look at why they're doing that. Are they doing that because of peer pressure? Are they doing that because of problems at home? Are they hiding from their own reality? There can be a whole raft of reasons why children might choose to do that sort of behaviour.
What if they're doing it just to experiment, like many people, nicking drink from mum and dad's drink cabinet?
Which is something I remember, with very fond memories. That happens, and I think that's happened all the way through.
I did that. But, anybody else do that? Terrible. I remember making witch's brew.
Yeah.
That was what we called it, out of drinks that I have never touched since. Creme de menthe, Cointreau, Chinsano, which even the smell of it now makes me feel ill.
Mm-hmm. So just a punch off the top shelf bit.
Didn't go anywhere near it ever again. It was absolutely awful. Is that okay though? Is that just a rite of passage?
I think I don't know if it's okay, but I think it's one of those things that happens. Where you do run into problems is where it leads to binge drinking and repeated exposure to binge drinking at a very early age. There is some evidence to suggest that that's going to lead to some kind of problems with alcohol at later age. It's a very complex area because psychologists and people involved in this area are not unfortunately, quite properly, are not allowed to experiment on children to see what happens with their brain if you put alcohol in it. It's deemed to be unethical, and obviously it is. So clearly we know that it's something that that shouldn't be happening, but there is a large social element to this. Children do that. On the continent, for example, children will be brought up with watered wine for their dinner. They have a different social attitude to alcohol. They would argue that they're teaching their children to drink responsibly.
Simon Stevens, thank you very much. Simon Stevens there from Addictions UK. Loads of people have responded to your question of what was...
Why do you think the North East particularly has a problem? That's what puzzles me. We know traditionally, certain areas of Scotland, Glasgow particularly, has had a problem with this. They like a drink, don't they, in the North West? So why have we got more hospital admissions for the under-18s in the North East than anywhere else in the country? Simon Stevens, Director of Casework for Addictions UK. Morning to you, Simon.
Good morning, Mike.
Can you answer that question?
There is very little research as to why. There's very little research generally into the effects of alcohol on middle adolescent brains, simply because it's not ethical to deliberately get children drunk to observe what's going on and understand those things. Why it might be more, I think we've got to look to ourselves as adults and the role model that we give. The type of programming we see on television that's often featuring alcohol. It is seen as being the passage to adulthood.
Yeah, I've heard people say, well, a guest said 5 minutes ago, it's not parents to blame, it's television.
Well, I think parents control television. They decide what they want to see on television. Television companies provide that.
You've only got to watch Coronation Street. The whole street.
Answer, yeah.
The whole street revolves around The Rover's Return.
Mm-hmm. And they're providing programming that adults want to see. So it's our attitude as adults that's just as important as children or adolescents' attitude. I do agree with Mandy that you were speaking to earlier that education is the key. What Mandy perhaps didn't mention was that in middle adolescence, in later adolescence even, the effect of alcohol on the brain can be quite catastrophic. The idea that a parent giving their children a bottle of vodka and saying stay in the house because you're safe is quite terrifying to me, because I am aware that level of alcohol consumption to a 14 or 15-year-old is going to have really quite strong effects on their brain development.
So in your opinion, Simon, at what age is somebody old enough to make an informed choice about drinking?
It depends on the individual. That's kind of how long's a piece of string. I don't know if there is a set age you can say you can make an informed choice. Certainly you cannot make an informed choice if you have not been educated as to the effects of alcohol on your system, the negative effects of alcohol. And this really isn't seen very much either in the media or in schools. Mandy made the notion that the liver is not properly formed. Well, she's quite correct in that. The brain is still developing into the middle 20s. At that age, the brain is incredibly plastic. What we mean by that is neural pathways are still being formed and then can be altered very easily. Alcohol, we've seen experiments on human brains. We've been able to watch it with some of the new techniques we have, and we can see the pathways actually altering under the influence of alcohol.
So would you actually go into schools and address pupils at the age of 10 about the dangers?
I think not just the dangers, but just how your brain works. I think it should be part of the national curriculum.
At the age of 10?
Perhaps not from the age of 10. From the age where you start including human biology in school lessons. Okay. When this is a teacher's call. They're the ones who know at what age children are best able to start absorbing that information. But certainly understanding how the brain and how the human body is affected by different substances and behaviours around us. Without education, you cannot make an informed choice.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Now keep your comments coming through because we're going to talk about